Will there be a surge in demand for silver as a result of President Trump's tariffs? The answer is almost certainly yes, but for a reason that I didn't know. I didn't know until today. Look, I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not offering anybody any financial advice. All I know is this, that I keep my finger on the pulse of everything economic. Okay, I call it a hobby, I guess. And the grumblings right now, as it pertains to gold, but more importantly and more aggressively with silver, is that the tariffs are going to have an impact. And it's not just because of the economic impact that the tariffs are going to have globally. That, of course, we're already seeing gold and silver doing very well price-wise. As a result of the tariffs, even just the risk of a trade war sent gold and silver up to record levels over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. But the thing that really has a lot of people interested and concerned is because the tariffs do not exclude precious metals, at least as of today. Now, in doing my research and listening to one of my favorite, I don't know, he's just a podcaster. He's not really, I don't know what his expertise is, but he goes by the handle Silver Seeker. No, he's not in Marvel. He goes by the handle Silver Seeker, and he tends to know what he's talking about. And he seems to be a very honest guy. I'm going to play his perspective here in a second. But as he highlights, the real driving factor that could push demand for silver through the roof isn't necessarily the tariffs directly. It's actually what's called FOMO, fear of missing out. When people start to get desperate, they start to buy more of a particular item. And then that item starts to experience shortages, and then people start to get concerned, and they start getting more of that item. And we saw a perfect example of this with toilet paper during COVID. People were not using the restroom more often as a result of COVID, but by golly, it became very hard to get your hands on toilet paper. Will the same thing happen with silver? It seems, at this point, pretty likely. Here's Silver Seeker.
So I spent a lot of time today researching as to whether or not gold and silver would even be affected by the tariffs. And the reason I did is I know in the past gold and silver have been specifically excluded from import duties. But they could actually be included on this one. We just don't know 100% yet. And like I said, I spent a lot of time researching this, and I ran across this article right here, which I thought was really interesting. And we'll read some stuff from it. We're not going to read it all, but I will start by this part right here. It says, historically, monetary gold and silver have been exempt from tariffs, but that does not guarantee they won't be included this time. Given the broad language of these tariffs, there is a possibility that they could affect certain forms of gold and silver imports. And then it goes down to talk about a tariff overview, 25% on all imports, and it does say all, from Canada and Mexico, 20% tariff, 10 plus 10 on imports from China and Hong Kong, and then a lower 10% tariff on Canadian energy and critical minerals, though specific HTS codes have not been provided. Now, the reason that's important is because in the past, silver has been looked at as a critical mineral because of its industrial applications. Then it says, could gold and silver be included? And it goes on to talk about the all imports language. The tariffs apply to all imports from affected countries, which could include bullion, coins, and other precious metals forms. Then the classifications and the unspecified HTS codes. The lack of specific tariffs codes leaves room for the potential later inclusion of gold and silver imports. And then the market reactions right here, it talks about the reaction to the changes here. So, they talk about the high of 29.56 in late February and how it dropped slightly today, 0.15% to 29.13, I guess at the time that they posted the article earlier today. And then finally, while gold and silver in conclusion are not currently listed among affected goods, the broad tariff policies leave the door open for their inclusion. Investors should closely monitor any further updates to the HTS schedule and remain cautious about the potential supply chain disruptions that could impact pricing and availability. And it gives some links as well. So we need further information, but I guess it's possible that gold and silver will not be affected. But what I'm worried about if it is affected is this. And this is where we get into that whole, listen, this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion. What I'm really worried about is FOMO-driven premiums.
Again, I have to reiterate, I am not an economist. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not offering you financial advice by any means. But with that said, the notion that we could have a run on silver, I believe, could have a lasting effect on silver prices. when you're dealing with finite resources such as gold and silver, these bursts in demand, they don't just go away. Okay, the effects linger for at times. We've seen them linger indefinitely. Don't forget, when President Trump first came into office, gold was pretty stable at around $1,200 an ounce. It's about to break $3,000 an ounce. Okay, just since he got into office. Now, that's almost certainly going to be, and again, I got to keep repeating this, not an economist, but from what I hear from actual economists, it's very unlikely that once gold really busts through that $3,000 an ounce threshold, it's not going to go back. Gold has never really gone back much. It's not like there's this big gold crash of 1947 or anything like that. It just keeps going up. Sometimes it'll go down a little bit, but then it goes back up. Same thing with silver. So that's why I say, as a result of these tariffs, we see the economic reasons, we see the FOMO reasons starting to ramp up. I think that we're going to see some major issues when it comes to supply and demand. This is why this isn't a sponsored post by any means, but it makes sense, at least to me, to reach out to my good friends over at Genesis Gold Group and see what they have to say about this. Find out how they can help you get your hands on silver before the big burst, especially if you're looking to roll over or transfer your retirement accounts into a gold and silver IRA. Go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com, and work with a faith-driven precious metals company. I don't know what the future is for gold or silver or crypto or stocks or treasuries or anything. I just know that we are at what appears to be a very clear crossroads when it comes to our economic future, not just of the nation, but of the world. And a lot of people say that sounds globalist. You're talking about the world economy. Here's the thing, is that, like it or not, until we're able to become an isolationist nation, we still have to rely on imports and exports. So one of the reasons that President Trump is utilizing tariffs in the first place is to make it more fair. He's not starting a trade war. We've been the victims of basically a one-sided war for multiple countries for decades. It's time to get back to normal. It's time to get back to fair. It's time to get back to the equivalent of free trade, just free trade with a little bit of reciprocal tariffs on top. We have less than a month before the reciprocal tariffs do kick in. April 2nd is the date. I think it behooves people to start getting your financial situation in order. I'm not suggesting you go do this or go do that. I'm not offering financial advice. I'm just saying, it might be time to prepare for some crashes of this market or that industry or whatever, because it seems as if chances are they're coming.